7th meeting of the Lake Orion Board of Zoning Appeals to order at 7:33 p.m. by my watch. Could we have a roll call and determination of quorum, please?
Chairperson Sutherland.
Here.
Dr. Balo is absent. Ms. Chaka Crawford.
Here.
Ms. DeVersa is absent. Mr. Reard.
Here.
And Secretary Matheson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. And we have no alternate to designate, I presume.
That's correct.
No box unaccounted for. I would, the agenda of our meeting for tonight was passed out earlier. I would, if you've had a chance to look at it, if anybody has any changes that they deem to be worthy of changing, would do so now. If not, I'd recommend, I would be open to receiving a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
We have a second? Mary seconding. We have a roll call vote, please.
I forgot about that. Chairman Sutherland.
Jeff?
Chairman
Yes.
Sutherland.
Yes,
Ms. Chaka Crawford.
Yes.
Mr. Reard.
Yep.
Secretary Matheson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
okay, the agenda is approved. You all received a copy, or file received online, a copy of the minutes of the last Board of Appeals meeting. Anybody have any changes or adjustments that they saw needed to be made to that it should not be approved? If not, I would entertain a motion to have the minutes of the last meeting approved.
Move to approve the meeting minutes of April 14th.
April 14th. That's what I was trying to find that date myself. Thank you.
A second.
Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Chaka Crawford.
Yes.
Mr. Reard.
Yes.
Secretary Matheson.
Yes.
Chairperson Sutherland.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. The minutes of the meeting of April 14th are approved. Now it's time for public comments on non-agenda items only. First, do any of the virtual meeting participants that I see in our little boxes have any public comments on non-agenda items?
No.
No. Okay. Do we have any response from any telephone meeting participants that we know of? I don't think so, but Susan has just disappeared from her desk. Joe, are you there?
Yes, I am. Susan's just walking back in. And there she is.
There you are. Yeah, were there any telephone
Oh, I'm sorry. I was choking.
comments on non-agenda items?
No, I'm sorry. No public comments, no written, and no telephone.
No telephone. Okay. We will now move to the review of the losing my place here. Okay, no written communications. So we'll close the public hearing on non-agenda items. I've lost the page here. Okay, public comments. Okay, review of the BZA order of procedure for the handling of appeals. We will begin with the planner's comments on the case at hand. That will then be followed by the applicant's presentation of their comments on the situation. We will then ask for public comments. We will have board deliberation, and hopefully arrive at a motion to approve or deny the requested variances. The planner will outline the standards for which we are required to follow for approving or denying any application for a variance. They're all centered around the concept of practical difficulty, that the applicant needs to demonstrate that there's a practical difficulty that requires the favorable approval of the variance that is beyond the control of the situation of the applicant or due to the parcel of property or whatever. With that, we will move on to the only item on the agenda tonight, which is the case A2002, the Samet residence. It's on the northwest corner of Shadbolt in Washington. And if we could begin with the planner's comments, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We have reviewed a variance application submitted by Stephen and Renee Samet. The applicants propose building a new single-family dwelling with a detached garage. The subject site is a vacant lot on the northwest corner of Shadbolt and Washington Street intersection. The site is zoned RV, which is residential village one-family dwelling zoning. The lot is legally non-conforming with regard to the minimum lot size and lot width. The applicant's proposal to build requires 3 variances from the zoning ordinance. The first 2 are from Article 12, Schedule of Regulations, Section 12.02 for the RV zoning district. The front yard required setback along Shadbolt, 25 feet minimum required, 15.8 feet is proposed to the porch overhang. A variance is being requested for 9.2 feet. Second variance is from side yard setback, which is off Washington Street for the dwelling. A 10-foot setback is required. 0 feet is proposed to the dwelling's overhang. So a 10-foot variance is being requested. The third variance is from Article 13, General Provisions, Section 13.11.B3 for detached accessory building setbacks. This is for the detached garage. The side street, Washington Street setback required 10 feet is the minimum. 0 feet is being proposed to the garage overhang. A 10-foot variance is being requested. Now, the zoning ordinance has specific standards based upon which the board needs to consider every request for variance. And these standards are based upon state law provisions and the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. I'll summarize these in brief. The first condition is compliance with ordinance standards prevents use of the property or is unnecessarily burdensome. As I mentioned before, the existing lot is non-conforming with regard to both the lot size and lot width. The minimum required lot area for the RV district is 7,200 square feet. This site has got a total area of 6,719.9 square feet. The minimum required lot width is 60 feet. This parcel has a lot width of 56 feet. So it's a legal non-conforming lot of record. Now, the applicant's proposal is to build a new single-family dwelling with a detached garage, and the way the dwelling is to be constructed places the dwelling and the garage along Washington Street's property line, which is also the right-of-way line. Per the applicant, there is an expanse of unimproved right-of-way along Washington Street. The applicant attempted to buy the part of the right-of-way from the village to increase the lot area, but such a request was denied. The applicant's justification in asking for these variances is, I quote, added side and rear yard space to allow the applicant the ability to enjoy the property's outdoor space, close quotes. Now, the proposed dwelling is at a 0-foot setback on Washington Street. If you look at the elevations that are there in your packet, they actually show a bay window projection in the study room that is on Washington Street. So if we were to go by the floor plan or the plot plan, it implies that the bay window is actually going to project into the right-of-way of Washington Street. While we do understand the applicant's desire is to have a larger yard space in the rear, unimproved public right-of-way cannot be considered towards this purpose. The required west side yard setback is 10 feet. Now, the way the applicant has faced their dwelling, they have 20.6 feet from the west property line. The applicant can shift both the house and the garage 10 feet to the west and comply with the ordinance standards from Washington Street. They will have a smaller rear yard, but they will have a yard and they will comply with the ordinance. That would automatically eliminate 2 of the required 3 variances. It may not be feasible to comply with the ordinance standards in its entirety. However, the applicant's proposal is based on their personal needs and not to build under the limited constraints of the parcel. As I've repeatedly stated at the board meetings, many of the parcels in the village are smaller and they are non-conforming. Property owners do have a right to build on those parcels, but some recognition needs to be given that this parcel does have a constraint on it. It's smaller than the required size, then the dwelling that's being built has also got to be smaller. Compliance with the ordinance standards by shifting the dwelling and the garage west by 10 feet is not considered to be unnecessarily burdensome. They can still build the exact same dwelling, just move it over 10 feet to the west. Second criteria is the variance will provide substantial justice to the applicant as well as other property owners. Approving the variances will provide substantial justice to the applicant because it will allow them to construct a reasonable sized dwelling with a detached garage, but it is not in the interest of the village as a whole or the intent of the zoning ordinance. The applicant has maintained a clear vision triangle at the corner of Shadbolt and Washington. This is basically the corner where the 2 streets intersect, where you're not going to obstruct the line of sight for vehicles. However, if Washington Street pavement is ever expanded, right now there is a whole grass area between the applicant's property line and the actual pavement of Washington Street. But technically, this is the public right-of-way. Maybe not now, maybe not in the next few years, but in the future, if Washington Street is ever expanded upon, it will literally place the dwelling right along the street. If ever a sidewalk is built on that stretch of Washington on the east, the sidewalk will be right below the applicant's window. So the applicant's proposal to provide a larger outdoor space in their backyard infringes upon the required setbacks, and it is not consistent with the existing development pattern in the RV zoning district. If you look up and down the street, the dwellings are not placed exactly at the right-of-way line. They are placed at a slight setback. The next criteria is variance requested as the minimum possible. We do not believe the variance requested is the minimum possible. The variance requested for the dwelling and garage, as I mentioned, along Washington Street, can be eliminated if both the structures are just shifted to the west. The variance requested from front yard, which is Shadbolt, is reasonable because it provides for a separation distance between the house and the garage for safety reasons. So they will have to place the house in front. Next criteria is need for variances is due to unique circumstances peculiar to the property. Now, there are no unique circumstances associated with the subject site itself. While the lot is non-conforming in both area and lot width, this is not unusual at all for the village. There are lots of parcels like that in the vicinity and in the RV zoning district similarly. The applicant has stated in their application, I quote, that many of the neighboring homes within eyesight of the property are within feet of Washington Street. I took the opportunity to review the aerial maps, both north and south of the subject site, and almost all of the dwellings are located several feet from Washington Street right of way and maintain a setback from the public sidewalk along their frontage. I could not find any dwelling within eyesight that is actually on the right of way line itself. Unlike many municipalities where typically in many of the communities, if you have a corner lot, they expect you to maintain a front yard setback along both street frontages. In the village, we actually give a property owner the concession of considering only one street as the front yard and the secondary street as a side yard. So the applicant is already being given the benefit on behalf of zoning. And finally, the problem necessitating the variances is not self-created. We believe the problem necessitating the variance from side yard setbacks of Washington Street is entirely self-created by the applicant's desire to have a larger outdoor space in their side yard at the cost of eliminating the front yard setback on Washington Street. I will reserve my recommendations until the board has had an opportunity to receive public comment and hear from the applicant too. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on the part of the board members or others? Okay, we will proceed with the presentation by the applicants. Is that going to be Mr. Sable this time, or is Mr. Samet, or both sides?
Let's unmute you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, now we can, yep.
All right,
Good.
very good. Hey, everybody, thanks for coming. Well, thanks for staying home tonight. I'm happy to
We
be
like
back.
that.
I'm happy to be back again. So I appreciate you being here. I've been working with Steve and Renee Samet, who are trying to put a home on an otherwise empty corner for, I don't know, some period of time, as long as I can remember. We're really excited about this. I've been building homes exclusively on Lake Orion for the past 6 years, which means 5-foot setbacks, challenging lots, lots of variances, angry neighbors, etc. So this one is kind of a fun job for us with all the space in the corner lot. So anyway, I just wanted to touch on a couple of the comments and things from the planner. Number one, Vidya, maybe you can clear this up for me, because as I understood it, variances aside, in section 4.7 of the zoning ordinance under for the RB district regulations, on the table on the lot width page and the side yard outline, when you look at the line item that says 50 feet to less than 60 feet, it says at least to 5 feet, but we're saying that they have a mandatory 10-foot setback.
It's a side street. So there is a difference between being an interior side lot line versus being a side street line. In this case,
Okay.
because this lot happens to be a corner lot, it's got the 10-foot minimum street side yard required. If it was an interior lot, it would be different.
Okay.
So that,
All right.
that is a slight bit of a challenge here.
Okay. Thank you. So anyway, when I looked at our master plan outlined by McKenna, and I look at the layout of the neighborhood, the wide, I guess, area of unimproved right-of-way extends for 4 blocks. It chokes up at each end. So the probability of the superhighway extending through here is less than likely. Also on the overhead map that I looked at. Now, you probably have access to something better than I do. I just looked at Property Gateway.
Mhm.
When I look at Property Gateway, let me share. When we look, if we look at this picture here, the property is noted with an X. The right-of-way adjacent to the property, we have a Y. There are 3, and it would appear all properties with a Z on them are either in the right-of-way or on the right-of-way. So if you really actually go to the street and look down the staked sight line, you'll see it either crosses right into these homes or on top of these homes. So it's not uncommon in the neighborhood to be this close to the right of way.
If you don't mind me just pitching in, Mr. Sabo.
Sure, of course.
GIS maps are notorious for shifting parcel-based map lines. In fact, I'm the zoning administrator at several other communities, and I do not accept even the county's GIS maps. It's okay for property line dimensions, but quite often what happens is, if you look at the Oakland County website itself, there will be a disclaimer over there saying, do not use this. You can use it for property line dimensions, but not exactly. Sometimes the lines just shift over. Quite often you will see lines shown running through the middle of a house, which is not really where the parcel line is. There is some margin of error over there.
No, I understand what you're saying, but if you actually went out to the subject property, the property line, that property line is staked right now. And if you stand at one stake and you look through the other stake, it goes right past the front porch of the house to the south of it. That's all I'm saying. It's not uncommon for where they're at to be close to the property line. Obviously, we're trying to make the most out of the property. We're also trying to make it more buildable on our end with room to work around the entire property instead of the smaller setbacks that we get stuck with oftentimes on the lake. So there, we bite the bullet and we take one for the team, and we put our ladders in the neighbor's yard to put gutters on and stuff. But here, it just seems like that doesn't make sense to me. We're really just trying to, I'm so excited to actually get into the village and start improving things down there. And we just like to do something that, like I said, makes sense. So as far as practical difficulty, again, getting around the house, and the other point is the home directly to the west of the house. I mean, if they cared to chime in, did they want a neighbor closer to them? Or, I mean, to not be able to get closer to a 40 feet right away that'll never be improved, that the applicant has to maintain anyway?
I am here, and I would prefer it to be 20 feet versus 10 feet from me.
Well, thank you. I did not know you were there, but I also thought that you would want that too, because everybody wants a little privacy and some backyard, and that'll keep give you both your personal spaces. So, well, I hope the board will take that into consideration.
Okay.
That's it for me on but the property owner, if he'd like to chime in at all, if he has any comments, if that's all right with the board.
Yep, that would be fine if Mr. Sabbath has anything to add.
We're just trying to build a beautiful home in the neighborhood and give our neighbor the space that they should have. For us to crowd our neighbor by moving the house 10 feet back doesn't make any sense to me. We're still almost 40 feet off of the road. And as Ed said, when you look at stake lines, it goes right through the porch of the homes that are on Washington Street to our south. So yeah, that's really all that I have to say about that.
Okay. Is
I
there-
have something. May I speak?
Hey, do you want to speak now or do you want to speak during the public hearing?
Okay, I'll save it for the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, any other? So that will close the applicant's comments then, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay. We will open now with the public comments.
Okay, Doug, now you can speak.
Okay,
Now,
I was just wondering about the sidewalk. I've been pushing for that sidewalk to get done between Shadbolt and Elizabeth Street for the time I've been on council. And how far would this sidewalk affect his house if it came out, if his house extended out into this easement here?
If I may answer that, Mr. Chairman? If you look at the Google Earth maps, Mr. Hobbs, if you see the sidewalk that is located on the south side of Shadbolt Street, sidewalks are always placed 1 feet within the public right-of-way. That's where a sidewalk is supposed to be located. So if you were to draw a straight line for the sidewalk going north across the applicant's property and their house were built as proposed, the sidewalk that is along the public right-of-way will be right below their window. You open your window is going to be hanging over the sidewalk.
It's pretty close. But that's what I've been wanting that sidewalk to go through, so that's why I'm here tonight.
Yeah, if the sidewalk
That's my concern.
Okay, if the sidewalk is placed where it is supposed to go in 1 feet inside the public right-of-way, the proposed dwelling will be 1 feet from that sidewalk. Because
Okay.
you'll
All
be
That's all for me.
okay, thank you. Any other public comment?
Just a question.
Mr. Sable?
Is there anything in our ordinance that says that the sidewalk has to be 1 foot on the inside of the public right of way, especially when you have 40 feet of right of way and the sidewalk across the street is maybe 6 feet off the road?
if I may. That is not a zoning requirement. It is standard public roadway construction requirements. Across state of Michigan or anywhere, a public sidewalk is always placed 1 feet inside the right of way, irrespective of Oakland, Wayne, Macomb, any county. That's the public sidewalk placement is 1 feet inside the public right of way. That's where it is located per roadway design. There is no zoning ordinance requirement that regulates placement of a sidewalk. It's part of a public infrastructure placement. That's where it is placed. In my experience, in 22 years, that's where a sidewalk is to be located.
But there's nothing that says that it would have to be there. I mean, this is an awkward situation where you have a 40-foot right of way. It could be anywhere the village of Lake Orion deems that it would be acceptable. I mean, Oakland County isn't going to come out and tell you that the sidewalk has to be anywhere. There's sidewalks in this neighborhood that are all over the place.
That would be something the village engineer will make a determination on if such a deviation will be granted, because there is a set standard. If the standard for placement of the sidewalk is going to be deviated upon to be placed elsewhere within the 40-foot setback easement, that is something the village's engineer will have to make a call on.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
May I? So we agree that that window will not go over the lot line. It will be back from the lot line. That's not a problem. That was a accident with the drawing. So that's not going to be an issue at all. And for the sidewalk to line up with the other sidewalks, it would have to be further towards the street. Otherwise, it is going to be 10 or 15 feet back from the adjoining sidewalk that would be on Washington Street.
That's an interesting thought. Okay, any other comments?
I have a
The
question.
virtual participants?
I have a question. I'm not sure, Mr. Hobbs, you know, why you want this sidewalk there. I walk the village all the time. So I guess I'm not understanding that, because I think there are other places in the village that they don't have the sidewalk on both sides.
Well, it's possibly for extra safety for the kids, you know, if the kids want to walk on the other side, you know, maybe they would walk on that side, you know, instead of the other side. I don't know, you know, but yeah, I know it's been talked about since I've been on council to continue that sidewalk to the north and join up. So
Okay.
I'm looking at it as a safety issue possibly.
Okay. So we've had virtual meeting participants and a telephone meeting participant. Any written communications?
Chairperson Sutherland, we have no written communications.
And with that, then I think we will close the public hearing portion of this. And it would be time for deliberation by the board.
No, Vidya first.
Oops. Yes, we need Vidya's, the planner's recommendation. I've got too much paper on my kitchen
That's
table.
okay. That's why we're all helping each other.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Based upon the feedback received from the applicant and the public, I do understand and acknowledge that there is an unimproved stretch of right-of-way. However, whether the right-of-way is ever feasibly going to be built or not is not really the planner's call to make. It is something that is up to the village council. A request for variance, from my standpoint, has to be reviewed based upon the standards that are in the ordinance at this time. And based upon the standards that exist at this time and the requirements of the ordinance, our recommendation would be that the Board of Zoning Appeals should approve the variance of 9.2 feet for the front yard setback along Shadbolt and deny the variances from side yard setback on Washington Street for the dwelling and garage. And the reason for this is based on the findings of fact as listed under Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. The first would be that compliance with the ordinance standards for side yard setback along Washington Street is feasible. The applicant's desire to have a larger backyard does not meet the test for unnecessarily burdensome. Constructing a dwelling and detached garage at a 0-foot setback with no yard space along the street is not consistent with the existing development patterns in the RV zoning district overall. Approval of the Washington Street side yard variance is contrary to the intent of the zoning ordinance and planning principles. The variances requested are not the minimum possible. The parcel is non-conforming, but it's not unique to subdivisions in this part of the village. And finally, the need for the variance from the side yard setback is entirely self-created. While a larger rear yard would definitely be desirable, as such, it does not meet the test for unnecessarily burdensome or practical difficulty in this case. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will move to time for the board deliberation. And I have a question that occurred to me when I looked at the property, and I don't know if this would be for Ed Sable or for Mr. Sabat, of looking at the lot and the trees. Is there an issue about moving that garage back further with the tree on that back side of the lot or not?
The tree would have to go in order to move the garage back.
And as it is proposed now, it's clear of the tree.
I think it would still have to go, Mr. Chairman, because they have to do grading on the lot. I don't think the tree will survive.
Yeah, I mean, as of now, where the tree is located, it could remain, but if we scoot the scoot the garage back, the tree will have to go. Yes, to answer your question.
And there's also a 6-foot storage area on the back side of the garage.
It was more just a covered outdoor space for, I don't know, it's storage, crafts, grilling, whatever the case may be.
Now, that stuff is always useful, but that's part of the space that we're talking about. If that weren't there,
Yes,
you would
it's
be able to
because the
move it.
interior is more for garage and outdoor is some storage and.
now my point is, you could move the garage back without that storage space on that corner another 6 feet without changing anything.
Yeah, and I mean, just for the sake of conversation, we could move the house and the garage, 3 feet off the property line, 5 feet off the property line. And I mean, it's a lesser variance, but it would still do justice to the neighbor that doesn't want a home closer than what the village is proposing right now. I mean,
And I
right
think
now,
we're talking about 2 variances, one for the home and one for the garage. So the home could go back 10 and the garage could go back 6.
I suppose. Anything's possible.
suppose.
Yes. Anything's possible. 10 is going to be awful, but yes, that's what we're looking at.
I think the comment on just the fact that of building a structure on the lot line is something that we obviously try to oppose in virtually every case. And in a situation where I'm not sure there's really strong practical difficulty in moving it back, why we should do so. So Bob?
I got a couple comments, okay? First of all, I'm probably the easiest person on this board, and I don't see. First question is, even that setback off of Shadbolt, there's other houses on that street. That front should line up with those houses. So whether those houses are 20 feet back, 15 feet back, I'm not sure what they are, but I don't think going down to a 9 foot or giving them that is really correct. Their houses should line up. As far as the side goes, I could go 5 foot, but we can't put them on the lot line. That's just not possible.
To address your first comment, we lined the house up approximately to the neighbor to the west, and although that home appears to sit farther off the road than what our numbers propose, when you look at the road, you're seeing the distance from the house to the road, not the house to the actual lot line. But these houses are approximately in line with each other.
Okay, so that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I just, I mean, that's proper building is to line up. Okay, I don't know how anybody else feels on the board. I could do 5 foot on the side, but I can't go to the lot line.
Mr. Chair? Yeah. I think the applicant's proposal does line up the front of the dwelling with the other houses on Shadbolt. So the request along Shadbolt is reasonable. What I do want to clarify is that while the next door neighbor would like a bigger side yard next to them, we need to remember that typically the side yards the board reviews are 5 feet or less. In this case, even if the applicant complies with the setback, they will still have more than 20 feet between them and the neighboring house, which is quite significant in the village. We rarely see houses placed at that kind of separation. So the neighbor's privacy will still be protected compared to what the board normally sees. Normally it's 5 feet or less.
Any other comments on the part of the board? Or thoughts? Or Okay, well, we've had two opinions, I think, kind of thrown out between myself and Mr. Riggard. And I think I agree with him that I don't want to see anything built on the lot line. I just think that doesn't make any sense for us and is a bad precedent. And I think for the property owner is probably not a real good idea. Things do change down the line, and you're going to build a home with increased nonconformities going off the bat, and you might want to do something more down the road. It might be more difficult to do. So I guess I, for one, and would be, I agree with granting the front yard setback. I haven't heard anything objecting to that. And yes, it does look like it lines up with the neighboring house to the west, and I think that's the important thing. As far as the Washington Street side, I would be comfortable with something less than the 10 feet, but certainly not on the property line. And I think, it would be, if you can move the garage back 6 feet without, they'll still have a decent garage, and figure out how else to make the storage space a little wider or whatever or something. I think, that should be a workable thing if that is something the applicant wants to do. That's something that we can propose. So
we would certainly consider both the house and the garage at 5 feet if the board would be on board.
Yep, Mary?
So right now, aren't we just able to take a vote on what's before us? I'm not sure why this sounds like it's like, let's make a deal. I mean, I don't understand that.
Well, I think we're trying to.
I mean, would they have to come back? Would they have to withdraw this and come back with a different proposal?
I don't think so. We've done this in the past. Did you?
Well, a zero setback is the extreme. So since we've asked for everything we can ask for at this point, we're trying to scoot back and prevent a future meeting. Save you and myself and the homeowners time. And I mean, we're at your mercy, but we're really trying to do justice to the neighbor and give these people a yard. So I really hope you'd consider it.
The board can grant a reduced variance than what is advertised. You can't grant more than it, but one of the criteria is the variance requested the minimum possible? So if you think something, you don't agree with my recommendation in its entirety, you want to grant them some variance, yes, you could grant a reduced variance. That is the board's prerogative. You could do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Would anyone like to propose a motion? Mary?
Sure, I'll propose a motion to approve the variance of 9.2 feet from the front yard setback along Shadbolt and to deny both the variances from the side yard setback on Washington Street for both the dwelling and the garage.
I'll support it.
Okay, we have a motion and support. And I guess we will call for a roll call vote, please.
Okay, what was that on the other two variances? Was that
Denied.
Okay, so
denied?
actually, we're going to have to vote on each one separately, I believe.
No, I believe the motion was to approve the variance along Shadbolt and deny the other two variances. That is a single motion that you're taking a vote on.
But that's not allowing us to separate them. Because personally, I want to vote for the the one variance, and I'm willing to give something on the other. So maybe nobody else on the board is, maybe not, but I'd like to vote on them separately.
Right now, you have a motion on the floor with a second, so you need to go ahead and take a vote on it as proposed, and then you'll have to see what happens next.
And who was the
Okay.
second?
Mr. Matheson,
Okay. Okay, we'll vote on that motion.
One more clarification, and that's based on McKenna's letters. That video went through, right?
yes, it's based on the findings of fact
That's
listed
the
in
one I was looking for, on the
letter dated
findings, yes.
April 21st, 2020.
Yes. Okay.
Mr. Aird,
No,
Secretary Matheson,
Yes.
Chairperson Sutherland,
No,
Ms. Jacob Crawford,
Yes,
2-2, motion fails, right?
That's correct.
okay, yeah.
Isn't Mr. Hobbs a voting member?
So
No,
before we go further,
I'm a watcher.
there are four of us voting. And I'm not sure we made it clear to the applicants that with four of us voting, you're gonna need to get 3 affirmative votes on the variances as requested or as amended later in order to get approval. So we just did a 2-2 and that motion is denied. It's not passing. So now we're back to looking for another motion that may end up with the same result. I do not know, but I think I would propose a motion that we approve the front yard variance as requested by the applicant of 9 point something feet, and that we amend the variance request for the Washington Street setback to 5 feet. For both the dwelling and the garage. And the reasons for that would be the ones that were set forth by Vidya, other than we think at least I think the denial of the request to set back to I hate to see a nice tree destroyed in the process. So I think that's a problem. And I think the neighbors' comments about wanting to maintain as much space between the properties, the houses as possible, I think is not an unreasonable thing. And I don't, I think there are situations to the lot with the right of way and the situation that's there that really aren't controllable at all by the applicants. So I think there are practical difficulties in maintaining the required 10-foot setback, and that would be remedied by a 5-foot setback. So I don't know if I said that well or right, but
I support that.
so we have a second. Any comments on?
So I support that motion. I don't think you're asking for too much here. 10 foot was definitely too much, but there's plenty of room on the east side. Giving them 5 foot of it doesn't seem like a problem. It's giving more room to the neighbors on the west side. And, there's no sense in having a board here if, people can't come to the board and get variances. We can't be so constantly hard on everything. Sometimes you need to consider that, what would you feel like is that your property there and you're trying to build something? So, I would request that the board think about it more personally, you know, that, hey, you know, this person's gonna build a house. It's gonna give the village a lot of tax dollars. It's good for everybody. So I think you should go with the 5 foot. I don't see any reason why you have to have the attitude, oh, no, we can't give them anything there. I mean, it's your choice, it's your vote.
Okay, any other comments?
Just, I just
Well,
wanna,
it's, I'm not
May
sure
I?
we could,
oh, it's okay.
I think we need to, right now we're in, board deliberation and trying to reach a result here. So could we have a roll call vote, please?
Secretary Matheson,
No.
Chairperson Sutherland,
Yes?
Ms. Chaka Crawford,
No,
Mr. Reard.
Yeah.
2-2.
Again. So are we saying that I don't know, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me you video?
At this point of time, both motions have failed because the motion to deny didn't pass, the motion to approve. So the applicant, the only option is for the applicant to come back with a revised petition because you cannot, it's either the applicant cannot reappeal for the exact same thing because once a variance is denied for lack of passing, you cannot come back with the exact same petition. It can be minorly tweaked and it can come back in a slightly different form. The exact same petition cannot be refiled for consideration by the entire board. That's my understanding. So at this point of time, I think it is a split vote. I don't see how it's going to pass. So Mr. Sebal, I think you're going to have to come up with something different that all members of the BZA would find the ability to support.
Well, I think we should move to propose just the one variance that everybody seems to agree on. And
Okay.
the other ones, if you want to try to come back, that's fine. But we're not changing each other's minds, so.
That is an option because you can act on the one variance that all the board members seem to be in agreement upon for the front yard setback along Shadbolt. So you can go ahead and act on that variance alone. And then it is up to the applicant if they want to come with a revised petition for along Washington Street or just go ahead and comply with the ordinance along that. They will not have to come back before you in that case. So you could go ahead and take action on the one so it won't delay them in their project. Should they decide that they've waited enough, they're just going to comply with that and continue building. So you can go ahead and act. If somebody wants to make a motion on the variance from Shadbolt for just the front yard setback, you could go ahead and do that.
Mary?
well, okay, so as I said before, but now I'm just going to recommend that we approve the variance of 9.2 feet from the front yard setback along Shadbolt Street.
Yes, please.
I'll support that.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Sutherland,
Yes.
Ms. Chaka Crawford,
Yes,
Mr. Reard.
Yeah.
Secretary Matheson,
Yes.
motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Now, we could yet still consider a different motion on the other two variances.
No, you can consider a revised petition from the applicant. At this time, it did not pass. You proposed a change. It did not pass. So technically, that request for variance failed. So the applicant can submit a revised petition for what they are seeking along Washington Street. But it has to be a different petition because you made a motion and both the motions have failed for Washington Street site.
Okay, so with that, I guess we will close the action on this case. I wish the applicant and the builders well in the, I didn't even realize there was that nice a lot still sitting somewhere in the village. I hope you were able to do something with it and do it well and enjoy it. So, I guess the next item is that our next regularly scheduled meeting is for May 21st.
Chairperson Sutherland, we have no cases on the May 21st meeting, so that meeting will be canceled. However, we do have a case scheduled for the June 4th meeting, so plan on having a meeting on that day.
So we'll meet back in our boxes again, most likely.
Yes, I think you're right.
That's what it sounds like. All right. I would like to, yes, Bob?
I'd like to make one comment, okay? I'm wondering if, when we get these drawings, if they could at least be on like 11 by 17 instead of on these 8.5 by 11. Makes it really difficult to really look at.
I agree with you 200 and some percent because I tried to double size it and I did, and I don't have a powerful enough magnifying glass to do that. So yeah, we have to. I couldn't get the packet to open up on my system. Just kind of sat there and hung up, and I tried twice, and if I get it on my own computer, I can open it up, but not that. So okay, let's. So we have I will make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
I'll support.
All in favor? Aye, will do.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks.
Stay safe, everybody. Good night.
Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
Mm.